The human woke up slowly, his eyes blinking against the harsh sunlight that cut through the thick forest canopy. He could feel the cold ground beneath him and the strange smell of alien flora. His head throbbed as he tried to remember how he got here. All around him, the forest was alive, but not in a normal way. Strange sounds echoed from trees, a mix of calls and clicks that made him shiver. He took a careful step forward, his heart beating faster. Suddenly, a shadow moved above him, silent and fast. Before he could react, 10 figures dropped from the branches like predators from the sky. Their armor shimmered in the sunlight, strange symbols glowing faintly. Their movements were precise, almost dance-like. He froze, unable to move as they surrounded him. The tallest of the huntresses leaned close, her eyes cold but curious. She whispered in a voice soft yet deadly, "Don't scream. It makes the meat tough." The words made his blood run cold. He realized he was alone, helpless, and completely at their mercy. His mind raced for a plan. But the huntresses already had him in their grip, pulling him effortlessly toward the unknown. As they moved, he saw more of their bodies, lithe and strong, each carrying weapons that looked both beautiful and terrifying. The forest seemed to close behind them, almost alive, trapping him inside this nightmare. One of the huntresses glanced at him with something that almost looked like amusement, and he wondered if they were testing him, or if he was simply another prey to be devoured. The path ahead led to a massive structure, alien in design with glowing walls and moving lights. The human tried to memorize every detail, every shadow, and every sound. His mind worked frantically, thinking of escape. But the huntresses were relentless, silent except for the soft whispers and the occasional click from their communication devices. Suddenly the forest opened into a clearing, and the lair of the huntresses came into view. Towering spires of strange metal and crystal, pulsing with light as if it had a heartbeat. The human's heart sank, realizing he was about to enter the unknown. Inside, the alien structure was alive, moving corridors and shifting walls that made him dizzy. The huntresses led him deeper, each step carefully measured, their eyes never leaving him, and he could feel their judgment in every glance. One huntress brushed her hand over his shoulder, a gesture that was almost gentle but filled with warning. He felt a shiver run down his spine, unsure if she meant to harm him or if there was a hint of curiosity. The human noticed strange markings on the walls, symbols he did not understand. They glowed faintly as he passed, making him feel as if the building itself was aware of him, watching, judging, waiting. He realized that this place was not just a lair but a test. He could feel the intelligence behind every movement of the huntresses, the way they walked, the way they spoke. Even the silence they kept, all of it was calculated, designed to make him afraid, to make him vulnerable. As they reached a large chamber, the huntresses paused, forming a circle around him. The tallest stepped forward, tilting her head slightly, studying him like a predator, deciding if the prey was worth its time. The human swallowed hard, trying to calm his racing heart. He understood now that this was not just about strength or survival. It was about intelligence, cunning, and the ability to adapt. He forced himself to think clearly, noting every detail, every potential escape. The alien structure was impressive, but it also had weaknesses. Small openings in the walls, patterns in the floor, subtle shadows that could hide him. Suddenly, one huntress stepped closer, her hand brushing his chin lightly, testing, measuring. The whisper came again, almost teasing. "Don't scream," she said. "It makes the meat tough." The words echoed in his mind, a terrifying reminder that his life was not entirely his own. Every decision from now on mattered. Every movement could be fatal. The human knew he had to survive, not just with strength, but with cleverness. He began to plan silently, calculating the risks, watching the huntresses and waiting for a chance. Outside the chamber, the light shifted, casting moving shadows across the walls. The forest beyond the lair seemed distant now, almost another world. He was trapped in a place that was alive, dangerous and unpredictable. The huntresses circled him once more, their glowing eyes and soft whispers a constant reminder of the peril he was in. But even in fear, a spark of determination ignited inside him. He would not go down without a fight. He would learn their secrets and he would survive. And as the huntresses led him further into the lair, the human steeled himself, knowing that the true test had just begun. The human stumbled as the huntresses pulled him deeper into the alien lair, his mind racing with fear and confusion. The walls around him pulsed with faint light, shadows stretching and shifting like living things. Every step he took felt like stepping into a trap. every sound amplified by the hollow structure. The tallest huntress walked slightly ahead, her eyes sharp and cold. She glanced back occasionally, making sure he followed, but there was no kindness in her look, only calculation, a predator measuring her prey. He realized quickly that this was more than a prison. It was a game, a test of survival. Around him, the other huntresses moved silently, their footfalls soundless on the metallic floor. They communicated in clicks and whispers, words he could not understand. Yet he felt their meaning. Threat, warning, dominance, every motion carrying silent power. The human noticed a faint blue glow along the walls, strange symbols pulsing rhythmically. Almost like a heartbeat, he tried to memorize them, wondering if they held secrets he could use. Some shapes seemed familiar yet alien, hinting at knowledge long lost to humanity. Suddenly, one of the smaller huntresses leaned close, her eyes studying him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. She whispered something in a language he could not understand. Yet the tone was clear, threat and amusement combined. A shiver ran down his spine, reminding him that these creatures were not only strong but intelligent. The lair opened into a vast chamber, a space so large it felt endless. Pillars of glowing crystal reached from floor to ceiling. Shifting light in strange patterns, the human's eyes widened in awe and fear, knowing he was far from anywhere safe. The huntresses stopped at the center of the chamber, forming a circle around him. Their weapons were still yet deadly, each blade catching the light and reflecting it like liquid metal. The tallest stepped forward, her gaze piercing. She studied him like one would examine a rare specimen, calculating, judging. The human swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic. He noticed subtle differences among the huntresses, small hesitations, tiny glances exchanged, and quiet movements that hinted at something deeper. Their society was not just about hunting. There were rules, hierarchy, and perhaps even honor. A low hum filled the chamber suddenly, vibrating through the floor. The human stumbled slightly as the light from the crystals shifted, forming strange patterns on the walls. He realized with a jolt that the lair itself was alive, reacting to their presence, and perhaps even to his fear. One huntress, the same that had whispered to him before, stepped closer, her hand brushing his shoulder lightly, testing, measuring. Her eyes flicked to the others briefly, and he saw hesitation in their movements, as if she was questioning the purpose of the hunt. The human's mind raced, trying to find a weakness, any chance of survival. He noticed a small panel on the wall, its glow flickering. Maybe it was a control, maybe a trap, but he made a mental note, knowing that observation was the first step in survival. Then the huntresses began a strange ritual, circling him in a synchronized pattern. Their steps echoed in perfect rhythm, a melody of power and menace. The tallest spoke again, in words he could not understand, yet the meaning was clear: obedience or death. Suddenly, a loud clatter echoed from a distant corner, drawing some huntresses' attention. The human saw a momentary opportunity, a flicker of distraction. His heart pounded as he considered a move, yet the tallest's gaze returned, sharp and knowing, reminding him that freedom was never given, only earned. The human realized that these huntresses were not only physically superior, but mentally precise, their every action designed to test him, to probe his courage and intelligence. He needed more than strength, he needed cunning, patience, and the ability to read them like a book. As the ritual ended, one huntress stepped forward, her hand pointing at him in a commanding gesture. He understood instinctively that he had passed or failed some invisible test, but he could not tell which. His body was tense, ready for anything. The lair itself seemed to pulse with anticipation, the walls shifting, lights brightening and dimming as if waiting for a signal. Every movement of the huntresses seemed amplified by the living structure around him. He realized with a chill that escape would not be simple, and the lair would fight him every step of the way. One of the younger huntresses, the smallest of the group, hesitated briefly, looking at him with a strange expression. Almost pity, almost curiosity. She whispered something again, and this time he caught a word that sounded like smart, sending a flicker of hope through him. The tallest huntress noticed the flicker of rebellion in the smallest, and the tension in the group rose. A quiet argument, silent yet deadly, seemed to pass among them. The human watched carefully, understanding that even among predators, power could be questioned, alliances could shift. Then, without warning, the chamber door at the far end began to close, metal grinding with a low scream. The human realized he was being funneled deeper into the lair, Every path forward controlled, every escape blocked, he had to act. But patience was as deadly as panic. The Huntresses surrounded him once more, their glowing eyes reflecting the pulsing crystals. The human forced himself to breathe slowly, observing, memorizing, waiting for a chance that might never come. He knew this was only the beginning, and the true test was still ahead. And as the lair itself seemed to tighten around him, the human realized that survival would demand everything he had: his courage, his intelligence, and his very humanity. The Huntresses whispered and circled, the tallest leaning close again, repeating those chilling words, "Don't scream." "It makes the meat tough." The human's heart sank, but a spark of determination burned inside him. He would survive not by brute force alone, but by using his mind, understanding their world, and finding the cracks in their perfection. The lair was alive, the Huntresses were deadly, and the test was just beginning. The human's mind raced as he was led deeper into the alien lair. Each corridor more confusing than the last. The walls seemed alive, glowing with symbols that shifted as he passed, strange pulses making his chest tighten. He realized that the lair itself was watching him, testing him even before the Huntresses acted. The Huntresses walked in perfect silence, their eyes scanning every movement he made. He felt like a specimen under a microscope, every twitch, every breath observed. The tallest Huntress leaned close occasionally, her whisper repeating the same chilling words, "Don't scream. It makes the meat tough." And each time it sent a shiver down his spine. Suddenly the floor shifted beneath him, panels sliding into new positions, creating traps he could barely see. The human had to think quickly, stepping carefully to avoid a pit that opened suddenly. His heart raced, adrenaline mixing with fear, teaching him to move with both caution and speed. As they entered a large chamber, he saw strange devices scattered across the floor. Pulsing with energy, each looked deadly, designed to harm or control. He noticed one device with a faint crack, a tiny weakness in the otherwise perfect alien engineering. The human's mind latched onto it immediately, calculating how it could help him. The Huntresses formed a circle around him, and the tallest stepped forward, her gaze fixed. She spoke again, this time in a low hum, almost a chant. The words were incomprehensible, yet the power behind them was undeniable. The human felt a pressure in his mind, a subtle manipulation he could not resist completely. A sudden movement caught his eye. One of the smaller Huntresses hesitated, her posture not as rigid as the others. She glanced at him with something he could almost understand, curiosity, maybe even doubt. He realized that not all the Huntresses were identical in thought or loyalty, and that small cracks could be exploited. The tallest noticed the hesitation immediately, her eyes narrowing. A tense silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the low hum of the lair. The human stayed perfectly still, hiding every sign of fear, knowing that any sudden move could be fatal. He focused on breathing, on reading the subtle signals around him. Then, without warning, one of the devices on the floor activated, shooting a beam of light that carved a small path of fire inches from his foot. The human jumped back instinctively, but kept his eyes on the panels and the Huntresses. The trap was precise, and he realized the lair itself was an extension of the Huntresses, working as one deadly organism. He noticed the faint glow from a crack in a wall, a possible escape route or hiding place. His mind began to race with possibilities, but every option was risky. Every move could be observed, calculated, and countered by the Huntresses. The human understood now that survival meant more than brute strength. It meant using their environment, their arrogance, against them. The tallest Huntress spoke again, her eyes never leaving his face. He could sense the subtle threat behind her words, a promise of pain if he made the wrong choice. But the human's mind was sharper than she expected. He began to notice the rhythm of their movements, the patterns in their gestures, the timing of their attacks. Suddenly the floor shifted again, this time dropping a small section into darkness. A mechanical roar echoed as something moved beneath. Unknown and dangerous, the human froze, feeling the heat and power of whatever lay below. But he also felt a spark of hope, knowing that the Huntresses themselves had not expected him to notice it. He quickly stepped to the cracked panel on the floor, careful not to alert the Huntresses. His fingers brushed the surface. Feeling the vibration of the device, he realized he could trigger it at the right moment to distract the Huntresses or even create an opening. The smallest Huntress, the one who had shown curiosity, glanced at him again, and this time, there was a faint nod, almost imperceptible, but enough to give him a surge of hope. He understood that alliances were fragile, and that even a predator could be swayed by cunning. The tallest huntress suddenly lunged forward. A warning or a test the human barely dodged, his body moving faster than he knew it could. He felt the lair shift under him as the huntresses reacted in perfect synchrony. Their precision was terrifying, yet he had learned a small truth. They relied on patterns, and patterns could be broken. He triggered the cracked panel, causing a low hum and sparks to fly. The huntresses reacted instantly, their focus shifting to the device, and in that brief moment, the human saw an opening, a narrow path along the shadows leading deeper into the lair. With careful, silent steps he moved, heart hammering, trying to stay within the shadows. The huntress's eyes scanned, searching, but the human's instincts and quick thinking kept him just out of reach. He realized that survival in this place depended not on brute force, but on observation, intelligence, and timing. As he reached the end of the shadowed path, he paused, catching his breath. The chamber behind him was alive with the hum of alien technology, the huntresses circling, whispering, calculating, and he knew that the real test was still ahead. The human understood one simple truth: he could not just escape. He had to outthink them, to anticipate every move, to become sharper, faster, smarter than the huntresses. The lair itself would test him, push him to his limits, and the smallest mistake could cost him his life. And as the human moved deeper into the darkness, guided by the faint crack in the wall, he felt a spark of determination burning inside. He would survive, he would learn, and somehow, he would turn the hunters into the hunted. The lair was deadly. The huntresses were relentless. But humanity's cleverness had just begun to show its edge. The human moved silently through the dark corridors of the lair, his eyes constantly scanning every shadow, every glimmer of light. He felt the pulse of the alien structure beneath his feet, a living, breathing entity that seemed to sense his fear. He paused at a junction, hearing the faint whispers of the huntresses behind him. Their voices were low, melodic, yet deadly, each one laced with calculation and control. The human's heart hammered, but his mind was sharp, noting every sound, every rhythm, every pattern. As he turned a corner, he stumbled upon a hidden chamber, smaller and dimly lit, filled with alien artifacts. Some glowed faintly, others hummed with energy. The human's curiosity flared, and he knew that among these strange devices, there could be a tool, a weapon, or a clue that might save his life. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind him, sharp and deliberate. The huntresses had noticed his detour, and their presence filled the corridor like shadows of death. The tallest huntress emerged first, her eyes cold and unyielding. She raised her hand, a silent command, and the others flanked him from every side. The human's mind raced, trying to anticipate their next move. He noticed that one of the smaller huntresses hesitated, just slightly, and that hesitation gave him an idea. If he could exploit the smallest crack in their unity, he might create a chance for escape. He picked up a small device from the floor, unsure what it did, but sensing it could create a distraction. As he activated it, a low hum filled the chamber, sparks of light shooting across the walls. The huntresses reacted instantly, their focus shifting to the sudden threat, and for a brief moment the human was free to move. He darted down a narrow passage, his heart pounding, each step carefully placed, every breath controlled. The lair seemed to shift and twist around him, corridors elongating, walls moving, as if trying to trap him, yet he pressed on, guided by instinct and observation. The smallest huntress appeared in his path suddenly, blocking his escape. Her eyes were wide, conflicted, and he saw a flicker of something unexpected, compassion, or perhaps curiosity. She did not strike, merely held out her hand almost as if testing his response. The human froze for a heartbeat, then made a choice. He reached out cautiously, touching her hand lightly, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them, a bond, fragile but real, that could tip the balance in his favor. The tallest huntress noticed immediately, her eyes narrowing, suspicion and anger flashing across her face. The human knew he had only moments before she would act. He led the smallest huntress with him down the twisting corridors, careful not to alarm the others. They reached a chamber filled with holographic projections, maps of the lair flickering in the air, alien symbols pulsing with energy, showing paths, traps, and perhaps secrets the huntresses had not intended for him to see. The human's mind raced, memorizing every detail, storing every piece of information that might save his life. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the corridors. the lair itself reacting to his intrusion. The walls shifted violently, creating barriers and traps. The Huntresses closed in, their movements swift and precise, but the human and his unlikely ally navigated the chaos with agility. They reached a high balcony overlooking a massive chamber below, filled with strange machinery and alien devices. The human noticed a control panel, small and unguarded, its purpose unclear but potentially powerful. He gestured to the smallest huntress, and together they approached cautiously. The human activated the panel, and suddenly the chamber below came alive with energy. Beams of light crisscrossing, mechanical arms moving, alarms blaring. The Huntresses below were forced to respond, distracted by the sudden surge of activity, giving the human and his ally a narrow window to act. He whispered quickly, outlining a plan, and the smallest huntress nodded subtly, understanding his intention. Together they used the chaos to navigate a series of corridors, avoiding patrols, traps, and shifting walls. The human's mind worked faster than ever, calculating every risk, every possible outcome. As they moved deeper into the lair, the human sensed a change in the Huntresses' behavior. Their formation was less perfect, their movements slightly hesitant. The smallest huntress had disrupted their unity, and that disruption gave him hope, a chance to turn the hunters against each other. To survive against impossible odds, they reached a chamber filled with alien light, the walls pulsating, almost alive. The human paused, taking in every detail, knowing that this moment could define his fate. The Huntresses would regroup, the lair would react, and only his wit and courage could guide him through the coming trials. The smallest huntress stepped closer, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, the human saw not a predator, but a potential ally, one that could help him turn the tables on the hunters, and perhaps survive the lair's deadly tests. And as the alarms faded and the lair settled into a tense stillness, the human realized that survival was no longer about hiding or fleeing. It was about understanding, manipulation, and the courage to act. Even in a world filled with hunters far stronger than him, even in a place where the walls themselves could betray him, he breathed deeply, feeling the spark of determination grow inside him. The Huntresses were formidable, the lair alive and unpredictable, but humanity had something the aliens had underestimated: ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to surrender. And as the human and his unexpected ally moved forward into the unknown, the lair pulsed around them, the Huntresses whispering and circling. And the true test was only just beginning. The human crept through the twisting corridors, every step measured, every sound noted. The lair seemed to breathe around him, walls pulsating with light as if aware of his presence. Each pulse echoed in his chest, a reminder that the alien structure was not just a building, but a living, watching entity. His small ally, the huntress who had shown curiosity before, moved beside him silently, her eyes alert, scanning for threats. The human realized that trust, fragile as it was, could be his greatest weapon. Together they navigated the maze-like passages, avoiding traps, the faint hum of alien machinery guiding their way. Suddenly they entered a vast chamber, far larger than any before, filled with towering crystalline structures. Glowing softly from within, the floor shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting their images and creating endless illusions. The human's mind raced, analyzing the patterns, searching for the path that would lead them forward. In the center of the chamber stood a platform, floating slightly above the floor, bathed in a strange blue light. The human sensed it was important, perhaps a control or a key to escape. But as they stepped closer, the tallest huntress appeared suddenly, her eyes cold, calculating, and deadly. She did not speak, yet the human understood the weight of her presence, a silent warning that one wrong move could cost him his life. The other huntresses flanked her, forming a circle of shadows, their movements synchronized, perfect, terrifying. The human's mind raced, recalling the devices they had seen earlier, the cracks in the lair, the hesitation of his small ally. He knew he had to act, But the wrong move would be fatal. Each second stretched, suspense building like a tightening noose around him. Then he noticed the symbols on the walls pulsing faster, the lair reacting to his proximity. A sudden realization struck him. The lair itself was a weapon, feeding on fear, amplifying danger, testing him at every step. He needed to exploit its patterns to survive, not just the Huntresses. He gestured subtly to his ally, pointing toward a faintly glowing panel behind one of the crystal towers. She nodded, understanding instantly, and together they moved, careful to stay in the shadows, timing every step, every breath. The tallest huntress noticed too late, a flash of surprise crossing her face as the human activated the panel. The floor beneath the central platform shifted violently, beams of light crisscrossing, alarms echoing. The Huntresses were forced to react, their focus split, giving the human and his ally a small but crucial advantage. He darted toward the platform, feeling the pulse of the lair beneath his feet, each vibration a potential trap, yet also a rhythm he could use. With precise movements, he reached the floating structure, his fingers brushing its surface, sensing a hidden control, a way to turn the lair itself against the hunters. The smallest huntress stepped forward, placing her hand over his in a silent act of alliance. The human felt a surge of hope, knowing that with her aid, the impossible might be possible. Together they activated the platform, sending a wave of energy through the chamber, and the huntresses below were thrown into chaos. The tallest huntress roared, a sound like metal tearing, her eyes blazing with fury. She lunged at them, but the lair shifted violently, creating barriers, forcing her to retreat momentarily. The human seized the moment, guiding his ally through a hidden passage revealed by the platform's energy surge. As they moved, the human saw something shocking. Other chambers filled with alien prisoners, creatures of different kinds, all trapped and observing the huntresses. The lair was not just a test of strength, but a societal ritual, a display of dominance, hierarchy, and survival. The human realized the stakes were far greater than his own life, and every decision now could change the balance of this alien world. They reached a narrow corridor, shadows flickering as the lair pulsed around them. The tallest huntress regained her focus, sending a few of her companions after them. The human and his ally ran, hearts pounding, each sound of pursuit echoing like thunder, each shadow a potential ambush. A sudden trap sprang beneath them, the floor tilting violently, forcing them to leap. The human grabbed the smallest huntress's hand, pulling her to safety, their combined skills and trust keeping them alive. The lair itself seemed to grow frustrated, walls shifting, lights flashing, as if angered by their defiance. Finally, they reached a chamber that appeared less fortified, a strange calm settling around them. The human paused to catch his breath, analyzing the lair's patterns, sensing that they had only scratched the surface of its secrets. The huntresses were formidable, the lair alive and reactive, yet he had learned enough to see a glimmer of hope. The smallest huntress looked at him, eyes wide, whispering something in her alien tongue. The human could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. Trust, alliance, perhaps even admiration. He nodded subtly, knowing that even in the heart of danger, bonds could be forged and intelligence could prevail. And as they prepared to move deeper, the human felt a surge of determination. His mind sharper, instincts keener, and courage stronger than ever. He realized that survival would demand not only strength and cunning, but understanding the alien world, its rules, and even its heart. The huntresses were deadly, the lair alive. Yet humanity had one thing they could not predict: ingenuity, resilience, and the refusal to surrender. The human and his unlikely ally stepped into the unknown, ready to face the true test that awaited them. And as the chamber doors closed behind them, the lair pulsed ominously, the huntresses whispering in the shadows, and the human knew that the coming trials would push him to his absolute limits. But he was ready, because he was human, and survival was in his nature. The human moved cautiously, the narrow corridors of the alien lair stretching endlessly before him. Each pulse of light from the walls seemed to whisper warnings, as if the structure itself knew his every thought. His heart raced, yet his mind was sharper than ever, every detail memorized, every pattern analyzed. His small ally, the huntress who had begun to trust him, stayed close, her eyes alert for traps and danger. Together they navigated a maze of shifting walls and deadly energy beams. Each movement of the lair felt alive, reacting to their presence, testing their courage and intelligence. Suddenly the corridor opened into a massive chamber. Unlike anything the human had seen, towering crystal spires twisted upward, glowing with an eerie blue light. Strange mechanical devices hummed and shifted on the floor, and the air itself seemed to pulse with energy. The human's mind raced, trying to understand what he faced. The huntresses emerged from shadows surrounding them, their eyes reflecting both curiosity and rage. The tallest moved forward, her every motion precise. A predator fully aware of its prey, the human held his ground. Knowing he could not fight them physically, his only chance was to outthink them. He noticed subtle hesitations in their formations, the smallest huntress he had allied with moving slightly differently, hinting at cracks in their unity. A plan formed in his mind, but it was risky, relying on timing, precision, and the unpredictability of the lair itself. He whispered quickly to his ally, and she nodded. Understanding his intent without words, together, they darted toward a series of floating platforms that shimmered above a pit of glowing energy. The huntresses lunged, but the human had predicted their path. Leaping and swinging with calculated precision, the lair reacted violently, walls shifting, lights flashing, traps activating. Yet the human moved with uncanny awareness, anticipating each hazard, each motion. Each step was a gamble, yet each step brought him closer to survival, closer to turning the hunter's advantage into weakness. The tallest huntress growled, a sound that echoed through the chamber, and with a swift motion, she sent a beam of energy slicing toward them. The human ducked, rolling beneath it, feeling the heat brush against his skin, his heart pounding with both fear and adrenaline. He activated a small device from the chamber floor, sending sparks and beams in unpredictable directions, confusing the huntresses temporarily. Using the momentary distraction, he guided his ally across the floating platforms, each leap measured, each breath controlled. The lair itself seemed to resist, moving the platforms subtly, but his awareness and quick thinking kept them just ahead of danger. Then from the shadows another group of huntresses appeared, more ferocious than the last. Yet the human noticed a pattern in their attack, a rhythm, a predictability that could be exploited. He whispered to his ally, and together they synchronized their moves, dodging, weaving, and leading the huntresses into the energy traps he had activated. The chamber erupted with light and noise, beams striking walls, floors shaking. Yet the human and his ally moved with precision, using chaos to their advantage. The tallest huntress paused briefly, shock crossing her face, realizing that her prey was no longer helpless, that cunning and intelligence could match brute force. The human seized the moment, leaping onto a central platform, activating its controls, and the entire chamber shifted, walls rotating, crystal spires aligning to form a new path. His ally followed, trusting his judgment completely, their combined courage and quick thinking turning the tide against the huntresses. One by one, the huntresses were forced to adapt, their perfect formations disrupted. The human realized that he had not only survived, but had begun to understand the rules of this deadly world. The lair itself was a test, and he had learned to play its game, to bend it to his will. A low hum echoed, the lair pulsing stronger yet no longer entirely threatening. The human felt a surge of confidence, knowing that he and his ally had achieved what few could, turning survival into control. Even if temporarily, the tallest huntress roared in frustration. Her pride wounded, yet she did not attack recklessly. Recognizing the human's skill, her eyes met his briefly. And for the first time, he saw not just a hunter, but a being aware of challenge, of competition, of respect begrudgingly earned. The human and his ally pressed forward, deeper into the heart of the lair. The corridors opened into another chamber, this one filled with glowing artifacts and alien technology unlike any he had seen. Perhaps the key to true escape, or a tool to confront the huntresses directly. And as the lair pulsed around them, alive and watchful, the human understood a profound truth. He was no longer merely prey. He had become a player in this deadly game, a force capable of influencing events, a spark of humanity in a world designed to crush it. The huntresses whispered in the shadows, regrouping, calculating, and the human knew the final tests were coming. Tougher, deadlier, more unpredictable than anything he had faced. Yet he was ready, sharper, faster and more determined than ever. And as he moved toward the glowing chamber, his mind alive with plans, strategies, and instincts honed to perfection, he realized that survival was not just about living, it was about mastering, understanding, and ultimately, outsmarting a world that had never known a human could defy it. The human stepped into the final chamber, the air thick with energy, the walls pulsing like a living heartbeat. Every pulse seemed to echo in his mind, every shadow a potential threat. The tallest huntress and her followers awaited, their eyes sharp, calculating, ready to end him. His small ally moved beside him, her gaze steady, determination etched in every line of her face. The human knew that this was the moment where survival, strategy, and courage would be tested to the extreme. He took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline sharpen his senses, every instinct screaming for precision. The huntresses advanced, circling like predators, the tallest stepping forward with a confidence born of countless victories. She raised her hand and the chamber's energy responded, beams of light converging, forming deadly barriers, ready to crush anything in their path. The human analyzed quickly, seeing patterns in the lair's energy flows, noticing the slight delay between each pulse, the brief moment where the energy field weakened. He whispered instructions to his ally, who nodded subtly. Understanding the timing, the coordination, the chance for a strike, he leaped, dodging the first beam, rolling beneath the second, the lair itself shifting, almost trying to throw him off balance. Yet he pressed forward, relying on intellect, observation, and the raw determination of survival. His ally mirrored his movements perfectly, their coordination a testament to trust forged in fire and danger. The tallest huntress lunged, energy blades slicing through the air, but the human had anticipated the strike, sidestepping and using the momentum to activate a device he had discovered earlier. Sparks flew, walls shifted violently, beams of energy redirected, and the huntresses staggered. Momentarily disoriented, he moved quickly, dodging the flashes and arcs of light, his ally close behind. Guiding him through the chaos together, they reached a central console, glowing with alien symbols and pulsing energy. The human's mind raced, deciphering the controls, each touch carefully calculated, each movement precise. The lair responded violently, walls shifting, beams of energy slicing through space. But the human had learned to anticipate, to predict. To turn the deadly environment to his advantage, he activated a sequence, sending waves of energy throughout the chamber, disorienting the huntresses further, creating openings and revealing hidden paths. The tallest huntress growled, a sound filled with fury and disbelief. She realized that the human had adapted, had learned, had become something more than prey. A predator now danced among hunters, turning their traps, their energy, and their discipline against them. The human darted toward a narrow passage revealed by the console's energy surge, his ally following closely, keeping the huntresses distracted, each step precise, every heartbeat synchronized with the energy pulses around them. The lair itself seemed to push back, corridors twisting, walls closing, yet he pressed on, guided by intelligence and sheer determination. A sudden surge of energy forced them to leap across a widening chasm. The human's hands gripped a ledge, pulling himself and his ally to safety just as the energy wave crashed behind them. The huntresses were momentarily caught, their focus fractured, their advantage slipping. He glanced back briefly, seeing the frustration and confusion in the tallest huntress's eyes, and a surge of triumph filled him. Humanity had survived not through brute strength, but through ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to surrender. The passage led to a large chamber with an exit, glowing faintly with alien light. The human's heart pounded as he realized the lair was reacting, trying to prevent their escape. Energy walls forming, traps activating, yet he moved with perfect timing, dodging, leaping, and calculating each motion. His ally whispered quickly, alerting him to a hidden pressure plate. The human adjusted instantly, rolling past it, the trap triggering harmlessly behind them. They were close, yet every step was dangerous, every moment a challenge. The lair tested them to the absolute limit, forcing every ounce of focus, skill, and courage. Finally, they reached the outer exit, a massive door with alien runes glowing faintly. The human placed his hands on the surface. Activating the final sequence, the door began to open, energy surging around them, alarms echoing, the huntresses closing in. Fury and disbelief etched across their faces. With a final leap, the human and his ally dashed through the opening, the lair collapsing partially behind them, walls shifting violently, energy pulses echoing. The huntresses screamed in frustration, unable to reach them, their perfect world shaken, their dominance challenged, broken. They emerged into the open air, the alien sky vast above them, the ground beneath solid and stable. The human breathed deeply, his chest heaving. Adrenaline and relief coursing through his veins, he had survived against impossible odds. Outsmarted predators far stronger and more disciplined than himself. His ally turned to him, eyes filled with admiration and respect, and for a moment, the human realized that they were equals in cunning, in courage, and in survival. He nodded subtly, silently acknowledging the bond forged through fire and danger. The lair loomed behind them, a dangerous living entity, yet they had mastered its trials, turned its power against itself. The human understood that the true test was never just survival. It was the ability to adapt, to learn, and to triumph where others would fail. As they moved away from the collapsing lair, the human felt a surge of determination, knowing that humanity's strength was not in raw power, but in intelligence, courage, and the relentless refusal to surrender. The Huntresses had underestimated him. The lair had tried to crush him, yet he had emerged victorious. And as the alien sky stretched endlessly above, the human looked toward the horizon, knowing that the universe was vast, full of dangers and wonders. But he was ready, for he was human, and no predator, no lair, no impossible challenge could ever truly break the spirit of humanity. The smallest huntress walked beside him, her hand brushing his lightly, a silent promise of alliance, trust, and mutual respect. Together they vanished into the alien landscape, leaving behind the lair, the Huntresses, and the trials, their bond unbroken, their courage proven, and the human understood one undeniable truth. In a universe that tests the limits of strength, intelligence, and courage, humanity will endure, adapt, and rise, for the spark of ingenuity and the refusal to surrender is a power no predator can contain.